The Power of the Spoken Word. Florence Scovel Shinn. Chapter 1. Weapons You Do Not Know. I have weapons you do not know, ways and channels you do not know. Mysterious weapons, mysterious ways and mysterious channels. For God works his wonders by mysterious ways. The problem with most people is that they want to know the way and the channels beforehand. They want to tell the Supreme Intelligence how their prayers should be answered. They do not trust the wisdom and ingenuity of God. They are giving the Infinite Intelligence definite instructions as to how to work, thus limiting the Holy One of Israel. Jesus Christ said, "When you pray, you must believe that you will have it." What could be more simple or direct? Be as a child if you want to enter the kingdom. We could paraphrase the scriptures, and say, have the expectation of a little child, and your prayers will be answered. A child waits with joyful expectation for his toys at Christmas. I give the example of the child, who asks for a drum as a gift. The child does not lie awake at night agonizing over his drum, and wondering if he will get it. He goes to bed and sleeps like a log. In the morning he jumps out of bed, ready for the happy day ahead. He gazes in wonder at what lies before him, while the adult spends sleepless nights agonizing over his problem. Instead of a drum, he has spoken for a large sum of money. He can't think how he can get there. And will he get there in time? Ted will say he has perfect faith in God, though he would like to know more about the canal, and how it is to be done. Then the answer comes, "I have weapons that ye know not of. My ways are ingenious, my methods sure. Trust in me, and commit your ways to me." Entrusting your ways to the Lord seems very difficult for most people. It means, of course, following intuition, for intuition is the magic path, the straight line to your manifestation. Intuition is a spiritual faculty, which is above the intellect. It is the still small voice, commonly called the hunch, which says, "This is the way, walk in it." I often refer to intuition because it is the most important part of spiritual development. It is the divine guidance. It is the inner God, it is the eye that watches over Israel, and it never slumbers or sleeps. With him, nothing is unimportant. In all your ways acknowledge me, and I will make your path clear. Remember, do not despise the day of small things, of seemingly unimportant events. It is very difficult for a person, who has always followed the reasoning mind, to suddenly follow intuition, especially people who have, what they call, regular habits. They are used to doing the same thing every day at the same time. They eat like clockwork. They always get up and go to bed at a certain time, and any deviation bothers them. We have the power to choose. We can follow the magic path of intuition, or the long and hard path of experience, following the reasoning mind. Following the superconscious is how we reach the heights. In intuition, there are the images of eternal youth and eternal life, where death itself is overcome. We have the power to impress the subconscious mind with the image of eternal youth and infinite life. The subconscious, being simply power without direction, carries out the idea, and we have our bodies transmuted into the body that can never die. We see this idea partially expressed in the movie called The Lost Horizon. Shangri-La was a symbolic image of the world of wonderful, where all conditions are perfect. There is a spiritual prototype of your body and your affairs. I call it the divine design, and this divine design is a perfect idea in your superconscious mind. Most people are far from expressing the divine idea of their bodies and affairs. They have stamped the contrary images of sickness, old age and death on the subconscious, and it has carefully carried out their orders. Now we must give a new command, let me now express the divine idea in my mind, body and affairs. If you impress the subconscious, repeating this affirmation, you will be amazed at the changes that will soon take place. You will be bombarded by new ideas and new ideals, and a chemical change will take place in your body. Your environment will change for the better, for you are rapidly expanding into the divine plan, where all conditions are permanently perfect. Lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be ye lift up, ye everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord, or the law, strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle. Now remember, the Bible is talking about thoughts and states of consciousness. Here is a picture of the perfect ideas of the superconscious mind, rushing into your conscious mind. Doors and gates are lifted, and the King of glory enters. Who is this King of glory? The Lord strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle. This King of glory has weapons you do not know, and puts to flight the army of aliens, the negative thoughts entrenched in your consciousness for countless ages. These negative thoughts have always defeated the manifestation of your heart's desire. They are the thought forms you have built up in your subconscious by constantly thinking the same thing. You have built up the fixed idea that life is hard and full of disappointments. You will encounter these thoughts as concrete experiences in life, because, out of the imaginations of the heart, come the problems of life. My ways are pleasant ways. We should all build in consciousness an image of peace, harmony and beauty, and one day it will become visible. Frequently, the divine idea of your life reveals itself in your consciousness as something so wonderful that it seems unreal. Very few people fulfill their destiny. Destiny means the place you are destined to occupy, and we are fully equipped for the divine plan of our lives. We are more than equal to every situation. If we could understand these words, the doors would open, and the channels would clear. We could actually hear the hum of divine activity, because we would be linked with infinite intelligence, which knows no defeat. Opportunities would come to us from unexpected places. Divine activity would operate in and through all our affairs, and the divine idea would be realized. God is love, but God is law. If ye love me, keep my commandments, or laws. Dr. Ernest Wilson told me that his first knowledge of truth came to him through reading Emerson's Concentration. Concentration means loving absorption. We see children lovingly absorbed in their play. We can only succeed in a line that interests us very much. Great inventors are never bored with their work, or else they could not produce great inventions. Never try to force a child to become something he does not want to be, for he will only fail. The first step to success is to be happy to be yourself. Many people are bored with themselves, have no confidence in themselves, and are always wishing they were someone else. When I was in London, I saw a man on the street selling a new song. It was called, "I'm Tickled to Death to Be Me." I thought it was a wonderful idea, and I think you should start by being happy to be yourself. Then you can expand quickly into the divine plan of your life, where you fulfill your destiny. You can be sure that the divine plan of your life will give you perfect satisfaction, and you will no longer envy anyone. People often get impatient, and end up getting discouraged. I was inspired when I read in the newspaper about Omaha, the famous racehorse. The article said, Omaha has to run a mile before he picks up the pace. There are, no doubt, many Omahas in the world, but they can get into their spiritual stride, and win the race, in the blink of an eye. Delight thyself also in the Lord, and he shall give thee the desires of thy heart. Delight in the law, means to enjoy making a demonstration. To enjoy trusting in God, means to be happy, following your intuitive clues. Most people say, "Oh, dear, I have to draw money again," or, "Oh, dear, I have to draw money again," or, "Oh, dear, I have to draw money again," or again, "Oh, dear, my hunches make me so nervous, I don't have the courage to follow them." People enjoy playing golf and tennis, so why can't we enjoy playing the game of life? It's because we are playing with invisible forces. With golf or tennis, you have balls that you can see, and a goal that is visible to the naked eye, but how much more important is this game of life? The goal is the divine plan of your existence, where all conditions are permanently perfect. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Every moment that we can link with intuition will give us a clue as definite as a signpost. So many people lead such complicated lives because they try to think things through instead of intuiting the way out. I know a woman who claims to know truth and its application in depth, but as soon as she has a problem, she reasons, weighs and measures the situation. It is never solved. Intuition flies out the window when reason comes in the door. Intuition is a spiritual faculty, the superconscious, and it never explains itself. A voice came before me, saying, "This is the way, walk in it." Someone asked me, if the reasoning mind was of any use. The reasoning mind must be redeemed. Trust the spiritual law, and it shall be given you. Your part is to be a good receiver, prepare for your blessing, rejoice, give thanks, and it will be fulfilled. I have weapons you know not of, I have ways that will astonish you. Chapter 2. I give you power. God's gift to man is power, power and dominion over all created things, his mind, his body and his affairs. All unhappiness that a person may feel comes from lack of power. Man imagines himself weak, and a victim of circumstances, claiming that conditions over which he had no control caused his defeat. Man, by himself, is a victim of circumstances, but united with the power of God, all things are possible. Through the knowledge of metaphysics, we are discovering how this can be done. With Tupolabra, you get in touch with this power. Then, miraculously, every burden is lifted and every battle is won. Life and death are in the power of the tongue, so watch your words with all diligence. You are continually reaping the fruits of your words. And he that overcometh, and keepeth my works unto the end, to him will I give power and dominion over the nations. To overcome means to overcome all doubts, fears and negative vibrations. A man with perfect peace and perfect poise, full of love and goodwill, could dissolve all negative vibrations. They would melt like snow in the sun. Jesus Christ said, "All power is given unto me, that I may bring heaven on earth." Let us be thankful that this is happening now, because evil is unreal, and leaves no stain. This power of God is within you, and it is your superconscious mind. It is the realm of inspiration, revelation and illumination, the realm of miracles and wonders. Rapid and seemingly impossible changes occur for your good. A door opens where there were no doors, and the supply appears through hidden and unexpected channels, because God has weapons that you do not know. To work with the power of God, you must give him the right of way, and quiet the reasoning mind. The instant you ask, infinite intelligence knows the way of fulfillment. Man's part is to rejoice, give thanks, and act out his faith. A well-known woman in England related this experience. She was earnestly pleading for the manifestation of divinity. These words came to her, "Act as if I were, and I am." This is exactly what I say again and again, only active faith impresses the subconscious, and unless you impress it, there will be no good results. Now I will give you an example, to show you how the law works. A woman came to me whose heart's desire was her right marriage and a happy home. She loved a certain man very much, but he was a very difficult person. After she had shown him all her attention and devotion, he suddenly changed and walked out of her life, so she was sad, resentful and discouraged. So I said to her, "Now is the time to prepare your happy home. Buy little things for him, as if you don't have a minute to spare." She became very interested in buying for her happy home, when all appearances were against it. "Now," I said, "you will have to perfect yourself in the situation, and become immune to all resentment and unhappiness." I gave him the statement, "I am now immune to all pain and resentment, my poise is built on a rock, the Christ within." I told him, "When you are immune to all pain and resentment, you will be given this man, or his equivalent. Many months passed, until one evening he came to see me, and said, "I have only the kindest and most cordial feelings towards this man. If he is not the divine selection, I would be just as happy without him." Not long after, she met the man, and he was very sorry for the way he had acted. He begged her to forgive him. Soon after, they were married, and a happy home began to manifest itself. It had been built around his active faith. Your only enemies are within you. The woman's enemies were pain and resentment, which are truly like snakes and scorpions. Many lives have been destroyed by these two enemies. Together with the power of God, all opposition disappeared from this woman's life. Nothing could hurt her. Think of what it means to have a life free of all unhappy experiences. This is achieved by making conscious contact with the power of God at every moment. Many times in the Bible, the word power is mentioned. You shall remember the Lord your God, for it is He who gives you the power to get wealth. A person with a rich conscience always attracts riches, but a person with a poor conscience can only attract misery and poverty. I have seen people in this truth rise out of lack and limitation, linking themselves with the God, or power within, not depending on the external. Trusting in God gives you irresistible power, for this supreme intelligence knows the way of realization. Trust in me and I will bring it to pass. All that our knowledge of truth can bring us is to know that God is the only power. One power, one presence, one plan. When you have the fixed idea that there is but one power in the universe, God power, all appearance of evil will disappear from your world. In getting a demonstration, we must recognize only one power. Evil comes from man's own vain imaginations. Withdraw all power from evil, and it will be powerless to do harm. I will give you an example that shows how the law works. I was in a restaurant with a friend, who spilled something on her dress. She was sure that she would have a stain. I said, "We will give you a treatment. Evil is unreal, and leaves no stain. Now, don't look, leave it to infinite intelligence." At the end of an hour we took a look, and there was not the slightest stain. What is true of a small thing is true of a big thing. You can use this statement for misfortunes, or for past mistakes, and somehow or other, under the grace of power, the effects will disappear, leaving no stain. Many people are using personal power instead of using God's power, which always brings an unhappy reaction. Personal power only means forcing personal will. I will give another example of a woman I knew a long time ago. She married a man who worked in a newspaper, drawing a comic strip. His drawings required a knowledge of slang, which he used on every occasion. She decided that he should cultivate his mind, and read the classics, so they moved to a college town, so that he could go to college. She insisted that he go to college. He resisted a bit at first, but then he began to like it. Soon he was steeped in the classics, and he was talking only about Plato and Aristotle. He wanted the food cooked the way they cooked, and to eat the simple food they ate. His life had become a nightmare. After that, he never tried to change people. You should know that the only person to change is yourself. As you change, all the conditions around you will change. People will change. When a situation does not disturb you, it falls of its own weight. Your life is marked by the sum total of your subconscious beliefs. Wherever you go, you always carry these conditions with you. I am strong in the Lord, and in the power of His might. I am backed by innumerable hosts of power. Power means dominion, and dominion means control. Man controls conditions, by a knowledge of spiritual law. Suppose your problem is lack or limitation, and your urgent need is supply. Connect with this divine power within, and give thanks for your immediate supply. If you are too close to the situation, if you are filled with doubts and fears, go to a practitioner for help, one who will see clearly for you. One man told me, while at a truth center in Pittsburgh, that he heard people talking about me, and said, "Who the hell is Florence Scovel Shinn?" Someone replied, "Oh, she is the author of The Game of Life, if you write to her she will get you a miracle." He said he quickly wrote to me, and got a demonstration. Jesus Christ said, "When two of you agree, then it shall be done." Do not hesitate to ask for help if you do not see your good. Jesus Christ saw clearly, for the people he healed. He did not tell them to heal themselves. Of course, you can reach the state where you do not need any help when you have the fixed idea that God's power is the only power and God's plan is the only plan. We cannot take blessings from infinite intelligence, they must be given to us. Man's part is to be a grateful recipient. "Behold, I give unto you power to tread on serpents and scorpions, and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. Thou hast made him to have dominion over the works of thy hands, and hast put all things under his feet. All sheep and oxen, yea, and the beasts of the fields." This is God's idea of man, but man's idea of himself is one of limitation and failure. It is only in a great moment that man seems to rise to his power and dominion. It is not until we are faced with a situation of lack that we suddenly express the power that has already been given to us. I have known people, normally nervous and anxious, become poised and powerful, when faced with a great situation. Listen, O Israel! You have no need to fight, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. People often ask, what does it mean to stand still, to do nothing at all? Stand still, means to keep your poise. I said to a man who was tense and anxious, "Be still, and see the salvation of the Lord." He replied, "Wow, that helped me a lot." Most people try too hard. They carry their burdens, fight their battles and are, therefore, always in an agitation, and that is why they never get, what we call, a demonstration. Stand back and see the salvation of the Lord. We could paraphrase the scriptures, and say, "Israel, you will never win this battle by fighting, let me handle it, and it will be given to you." By following the magical path of intuition, you escape all complications and frictions, and move towards your manifestation. Remember that we are told not to despise the day of small things. It is a great mistake to think that anything is unimportant. I was on my way to a store to buy 2 items. In my neighborhood there are 2 stores, one which is expensive, and another, where all things are a little cheaper, but the articles are exactly the same. The reasoning mind said, go to the cheaper place, but then intuition said, go to the more expensive place. So sure enough, I followed that magic path. I told the clerk what I wanted. He said, both items are being sold today at the price of one, because they are advertising one of the products. So intuition led me to the right place, and the right price. The price difference was only about 50 cents, but intuition always looks out for our best interests. If I had wanted to get something cheap, would have gone to the other store, and paid twice as much. Learn from the little things, and you will be prepared to handle the big things. Studying the scriptures closely, we find that God's gift to man is power. Things and conditions follow automatically, and God gives man power to heal himself. He gives man power over the elements, with which to heal diseases, and cast out demons. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength, they shall mount up with wings as eagles, they shall run, and not be weary, they shall walk, and not faint. Let us understand that this invincible power is really within the reach of all. Whosoever shall call upon the name of the Lord shall be delivered. Thus we find that the word links man with omnipotence. This supreme intelligence is more than equal to lift every burden and to fight every battle. All power is given me, to bring my heaven upon my earth. Chapter 3. Be strong, fear not. You must be strong and fear nothing, fear is man's only adversary. You face defeat whenever you are afraid. Fear of lack, fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of personality, or fear of criticism. Fear robs you of all power, because you have lost contact with the universal powerhouse. Why do you have so much fear, but so little faith? Fear is faith reversed. It is faith in reverse. When you have fear, you begin to attract what you fear, you are magnetizing it. You are hypnotized by the thought of the race, when you are afraid. Daniel was undeterred, because he knew that his God was stronger than the lions. His God made the lions so harmless, like little kittens. So you can join your lion as quickly as possible, and see for yourself. Perhaps, all your life, you have been running away from a particular lion. He has made your life miserable, and grayed your hair. A hairdresser once told me that she knew a woman whose gray hair returned to its natural color when she stopped worrying. A woman told me during an interview, "I'm not fearful at all, but I worry a lot." Fear and worry are twins, and they are the same thing. If you were not afraid, your worry cells would dry up. Why do you worry, O men of little faith? I think the most frequent fear is the fear of loss. You may have all that life can give you, but the old lion of apprehension creeps in. You hear him growl, "It's too good to be true. It can't last." If it gets your attention, you may worry. Many people have lost what they cherished most in life, and that is because invariably, they were dreading that loss. The only weapon you can use against your lions is the power of your word. Your word is your wand, full of magic and power. You wave your wand over your lion, and transmute it into a kitten, but the lion will still be a lion, unless you get close to it. You may ask, how can we approach the lions? Moses said to his people, "Do not be afraid, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will show you now, for the Egyptians whom you have seen today, you will never see them again. The Lord will fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace." What a wonderful arrangement! Infinite intelligence knows the way out, just as she knows where the supply is for every demand. But we must trust it, keep our balance, and give it the right of way. Many people are afraid of others, they run away from unpleasant situations and, of course, the situation haunts them. The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom then shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life, of whom then shall I be afraid? Psalm 27 is one of the most triumphant. It is also rhythmic and musical. The writer realized that no enemy could harm him, because the Lord was his light and his salvation. Remember that your only enemies are within yourself. The Bible speaks of enemy thoughts, your doubts, fears, hatreds, resentments and feelings. Every negative situation in your life is a crystallized thought, and has been constructed from your own vain imaginings. But these situations cannot withstand the light of truth, so face the situation without fear, saying, "The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear?" Jesus Christ was the greatest of metaphysicians, and gave us definite rules, to control conditions by word and thought. "Thou hast made me wiser than mine enemies." First of all, you must be wiser than your enemy thoughts, the army of aliens. You must respond to every negative thought, with a word of authority. The army of aliens will chant, "Business is boring, and money is scarce." Immediately you respond, "My supply comes from God, and now it appears like mushrooms overnight." There are no hard times in the kingdom. You may have to go on like this for quite some time, like the Katy Did song, Katy did it, Katy didn't do it, and so on. In the end you will win, because truth must prevail, and you will have put the alien army on the run. Then, when you are off guard, the alien army starts again, you are not appreciated, you will never succeed. Then you must immediately reply, "God appreciates me, therefore man appreciates me, and nothing can interfere with my success, which was divinely designed." Finally the alien army dissolves and dissipates, as you do not pay attention to it. You have starved the aliens. Starve the thoughts of fear by not paying attention to them and acting on your faith. The lion draws its ferocity from your fear, its roar is in the tremors of your heart. Be still like Daniel, and you too will hear the onslaught of the angels, sent to take your part. The mission of Jesus Christ was to awaken the people. Wake up, you who sleep. People were asleep, in the Adamic sleep of opposites. Lack, loss, failure, sin, sickness and death seemed realities to them. The story of Adam is that he ate from the tree of illusion, and fell into a deep sleep. In this deep sleep, he vainly imagined good and evil. Bernard Shaw, in his book Back to Methuselah, says, Adam invented murder, birth and death, and all negative conditions. It was the development of the reasoning mind. Of course, Adam means generic mind. In the Garden of Eden stage, man functioned only in the superconscious. Whatever he desired or needed, was always at hand, and with the development of the reasoning mind, came the fall of man. He reasoned himself into lack, limitations and failure. He earned his bread by the sweat of his brow, instead of being divinely provided for. The message of Jesus Christ was to bring people back to the fourth dimension, the consciousness of the Garden of Eden. In the 14th chapter of John, we find the summary of all his teachings. He called it, the Gospel, which means, good news. With astonishing simplicity and frankness, he told the people that if they asked and believed, then they would receive, always attributing the power to the Father within. God is the giver, and man is the receiver. This supreme intelligence supplies man with everything he desires or needs. This was indeed a doctrine to awaken people. He proved his claims with miracles and wonders. One of the most dramatic miracles was the healing of the man born blind. Jesus' opponents questioned the man, hoping to find something against him, but the man only said, "One thing I know, while I was blind, now I can see." This is a wonderful statement, to make to oneself. While I was blind, now I can see. Perhaps you were blind to your good, blind to your opportunities, blind to your intuitive clues, blind to appearances, mistaking friends for enemies. When you are awake to your good, you know there are no enemies, because God uses every person and situation to do your good. Hindrances are friends, and obstacles are stepping stones. One with God, you become invincible. This is a very powerful statement. God's invincible power sweeps all away. I ride the waves to my promised land. Riding the waves, you are carried to your destination, free from the undertow of negative thinking, which would drag you down. Your thoughts and desires always take you somewhere. Mulford says, persistent purpose, that strong desire, that yearning that never ceases, is a seed in the mind. It is rooted there, it is alive, and it never ceases to grow. There is in it a wonderful law. This law, when known, followed and trusted, leads each individual to powerful and beautiful results. The law followed with open eyes leads to more and more happiness in life, but followed blindly with closed eyes, it leads to misery. This means that desire is a tremendous vibratory force and must be properly directed. Take this statement, I desire only what infinite intelligence desires through me. I claim what is mine by divine right, and under the grace of a perfect way. Then you will cease to desire the wrong things, and right desires will take their place. Your mournful desires are mournfully answered, and your impatient desires are long delayed, or violently fulfilled. It is important never to lose sight of this. Many unhappy situations have been brought about by dull or impatient desires. I will give the example of a woman who was married to a man who wanted her to go somewhere with him every night. It exhausted her, and night after night she longed impatiently to stay at home reading a book. The desire was so strong that it began to well up, and her husband left with another woman. She lost him and his support, but she had time to stay home, and read a book. Nothing has come uninvited into her life, Mulford, too, has some interesting ideas about work. He said, to succeed in any business, any art, any craft, any trade or any profession, just keep it, always persistently fixed in mind, as a goal. And then study to make every effort, towards play or recreation. The moment it becomes hard work, we are not moving forward. Looking back on my experiences in the art world, I see how true this is. From the Academy of Fine Arts in Philadelphia, there came out 8 men, all about the same age, who became distinguished, and very successful, artists. In contemporary art they were called the 8. None of them were known for hard work. They were never inspired by antiquity, and they never did anything academically. They simply expressed themselves, they painted and drew, because they liked it, and it amused them. They tell the amusing story of one of them, who became a very well-known landscape painter, receiving many medals and honorable mentions, in different exhibitions. He had a solo exhibition in New York, in one of the big galleries, and was sitting reading a newspaper. An enthusiastic woman came running up to him, and asked, "Can you tell me anything about the wonderful man, who painted these lovely pictures?" Then he replied, "Sure, I'm the one who painted the damn pictures. He painted just for fun, he didn't care if people liked his paintings or not. While I was blind, now I can see, my work right, my self-expression perfect. While I was blind, I can now see clearly and distinctly, the divine plan of my life. While I was blind, I can now see, that God's power is the only power, and God's plan is the only plan. The thinking of the race is still, with a belief in insecurity. Awake, thou that sleepest. God is your eternal security of mind, body and affairs. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. If you were fully awake to your good, you could not be troubled and fearful. Awaken to the truth, loss, lack and failure would disappear from your life. They come from your own vain imaginations. The following is an example, which illustrates the working of the law. Some years ago, when I was in London, I bought at Asprey's a wonderful fountain pen. It was Japanese, and was called Namike pen. It was quite expensive and they gave me, with it, a guarantee that it would last 30 years. I was very impressed, because every summer, on the 5th of August, they wrote to me asking me how the pen was doing. Anyone would think I had bought a horse. It wasn't just any corral, and it felt very satisfying. I carried it with me all the time, but one day I lost it. I immediately began to deny the loss. I said, there is no loss in the divine mind, and therefore, I cannot lose the Namike feather. It will be returned to me, or I will have its equivalent. No store, that I knew of in New York City, had these pens, and London was far away, but I was charged with divine confidence, and I could not lose the Namike pen. One day, riding the bus down Fifth Avenue, my eye caught, for a split second, a store sign. It seemed to stand out in the light. It said, Oriental Craft Shop. I had never heard of it, but I had a strong hunch to go in, and ask for a Namike pen. I got off the bus, went into the store and asked. The saleswoman replied, well yes, we have a good assortment, and we just reduced them to $2. Then I praised the Lord, and thanked him. Then I bought 3, and told the story at one of my meetings. They soon sold out, as people rushed to buy them. This was, indeed, an amazing work of law, but, I was wide awake to my good. I let no weeds grow under my intuition. The student of truth, knows that he must test principle in his daily affairs. In all thy ways acknowledge me, and I will direct thy paths. Verily I say unto you, he that believeth on me, and on the works that I do, he shall do them also, and greater works than these shall he do, because I go unto the Father. What a wonderful faith Jesus Christ had in man. He had the vision of the race to come. Man made in the likeness and image of God, imagination. And whatsoever ye shall ask in my name, that will I do, that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If you ask anything in my name, I will do it." He explained to the people that they were under a gift system. God was the giver, and man was the receiver. "Do you not believe that I am in the Father, and the Father is in me? The words that I speak unto you, I speak not of myself, but the Father that dwelleth in me, he it is that doeth the works." He told the people to seek the kingdom of perfect ideas, where all things would be added to them. He awakened them. "While I was blind, now I can see, there is nothing to fear, for there is no power to harm. I see clearly before me, the open way of fullness. There are no obstacles in my path. You have made him to rule over the works of your hand, you have put everything under his feet." Psalm 8:6. Chapter 4. The glory of the Lord. In the dictionary, I find the word glory, defined as radiance, splendor. "Mine eyes have seen the brightness of the Lord," which means the law in action. We cannot see God, for God is principle, power, the supreme intelligence within us, but what we see, are the proofs of God. "Prove me by this, saith the Lord of hosts, if I will not open the windows of hearing, and pour upon you so great a blessing, that there shall not be room enough to receive it." We test God, directing his power, and trusting him to do the work. Every time we receive a demonstration, it is that we have proved God. If you have not received the desires of your heart, you have asked wrongly, that is, you have not prayed correctly. You receive the answer in the same way you sent your request. Your mournful desires are answered mournfully, your impatient desires are long delayed, or violently fulfilled. Suppose you are resentful, because of lack and limitation, and you live in poor surroundings. You say with great feeling, "I want to live in a big house, with beautiful surroundings." Sooner or later, you may find yourself as a caretaker in a big and beautiful house, but you have no share in this opulence. This idea occurred to me as I was driving past Andrew Carnegie's house and grounds on Fifth Avenue. It was all locked up, with the entrance and windows boarded up, and there was only one window open, which belonged to the basement. The janitor lived there. It was certainly a grim picture. So ask, or wish, with praise and thanksgiving, that you may see the glory of the law in action. All of life is vibration. You either match what you perceive, or you match what you vibrate to. If you are vibrating toward injustice and resentment, you will meet it in your path, and at every step. You will certainly think that the world is harsh, and that everyone is against you. Hermes Trismegistus said several thousand years ago, to change your state of mind, you must change your vibrations. I make it even stronger, I say that, to change your world, you must change your vibrations. Turn on a different current, in your thought battery, and you will see the difference immediately. Suppose you have been resenting people, and saying they don't appreciate you. Take the affirmation, God appreciates me, and therefore, man appreciates me, I appreciate me. Immediately, you will find yourself with some recognition externally. You are now a master worker, and your tools are your words. Make sure you are building constructively, according to the divine plan. Judge Troward said, "Man is a distributor of divine power, he does not create this force." We find in Hebrews, "What is man that thou art mindful of him? And the Son of Man that thou shouldest visit him? Thou hast made him a little lower than the angels, and hast crowned him with glory and honor. You have made him ruler over the works of your hands, you have put everything under his feet. You put all things under our understanding." We are entering an age of understanding. We no longer have the faith of the peasants, we have an understanding faith. Solomon said, "With all you get understanding, understanding of the workings of the spiritual law, so that we distribute this power within us, in a constructive way." The law of laws is to do unto others, what you would have them do unto you, for whatsoever you send forth returns, and what you do unto others will be done unto you. Thus, the woman who refrains from criticism is saved from criticism. Critical people are always being criticized, because they live in that vibration. They also have rheumatism, because acidic thoughts produce acid in the blood, which causes pain in the joints. I read an article in the newspaper that said that a doctor had a peculiar experience with one of his patients. The woman had boils whenever her mother-in-law visited her. There was nothing unusual about this, as she was boiling inside. How many times have we heard people say that she was boiling hot, so the boils would appear on her body? This does not include all mothers-in-law. I have known some very wonderful ones, who have only brought peace and harmony with them. Skin problems indicate that someone has gotten under your skin. They have irritated or angered you. Here we see again, that man gives direction to this power of God, through himself. Vibrant to this power, all things are under his feet. All sheep and oxen, and beasts of the field. The fowls of the air, and the fishes of the sea, all that pass through the paths of the seas. What a picture of power and dominion for man. Man has power and dominion over the elements. We should be able to rebuke the wind and the waves. We should be able to put an end to drought. I read in the newspaper that the inhabitants of a certain drought district were asked not to chant again, "It will rain no more." Knowing something about metaphysics, they realized the power of negative words. They thought it had something to do with the drought. We should be able to stop floods and epidemics, for man has been given power and dominion over all created things. Every time we have a manifestation, we are demonstrating our power and dominion. We must be elevated in consciousness, so that the King of Glory may come in. When we read the statement, "If thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light," it makes us seem flooded with light. It makes us seem to be flooded with an inner radiance. The single eye means to see only the good, not to be disturbed by the appearances of evil. As Jesus Christ said, "Judge not by appearances, judge with righteous judgment." There is a hidden law of indifference. Jesus Christ knew this law. None of these things move me. None of these things trouble me, we might say in our modern language. Selfishness and self-will bring defeat and failure. Except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. The faculty of imagination is a creative faculty, and your images of fear will appear in the external, the result of your own distorted imagination. With the single eye, man sees only truth. He sees through evil, knowing that out of it comes good. He transmutes injustice into justice, and disarms his apparent enemies, sending them goodwill. He is now supported by innumerable hosts of power, for the single eye sees only victory. Mythology tells us of the Cyclops, a race of giants, said to have inhabited Sicily. These giants had a single eye in the middle of the forehead. The seat of the faculty of imagination is located in the forehead, between the eyes, so these giants of fable came from this idea. You are indeed a giant when you have the single eye. Jesus Christ, the greatest of all teachers, reiterated, "Now is the appointed time, today is the day of your salvation." A few days ago, I saw a movie, which showed the futility of trying to live in the past, or bring it back. It's a French movie, and it's called, Life Goes On Dancing. It is the story of a woman who, at the age of 16, went to her first ball. She is now a widow in her 30s. She had married for money, and had never known happiness. Burning old papers, she found a faded dance program. It listed the names of 6 men, with whom she had danced at a party. Each had sworn to love her all her life. As she sits with the program in her hands, the memory of the dance appears on the screen, an enchanting scene, with the dancers almost floating, to the sound of a mesmerizing waltz. Now her life is empty, and she decides to recover her lost youth by finding out what has become of the men whose names appeared in the program. A friend who accompanies her tells her, "You cannot recover your lost youth. If you go back, you lose the things of today." However, she goes in search of him, and with everything, comes disillusionment. One did not remember her at all. When she said, "Don't you remember me? I'm Christine." He replied, "I don't remember any Christine." Some of them were now leading a sordid life. At last he returns to the village of his childhood, where the fifth man lived, who had become a hairdresser. He talks to her cheerfully about the old days, while permanently greeting her. He says to her, "I suppose you don't remember your first dance. It was right here in this village, and tonight there will be a dance in the same place. Come with me, it will remind you of old times." She goes to the dance, and it all looks cheap and tawdry. On the dance floor there are unattractive people, and badly dressed. She asks the orchestra to play her waltz, the waltz of her lost youth. Her accompanist tells her that the others will not like such an old-fashioned waltz. Nevertheless, they still play it. The contrast is too much, all her illusions have vanished. She realizes that the dance she remembers never really existed as she thought. It was only an illusion, and she could not recover her past. It has been said that the two thieves of the cross represented the thieves of time. One spoke of the past, and the other of the future, and Jesus Christ replied, "Now is the appointed time, today you will be with me in paradise." In the ancient Sanskrit poem, we are told, "Look well, then, to this day." Such is the greeting of the dawn. All worry and fear are in reality thieves of time. The occult law underlying indifference is one of the most profound, for it contains the attainment of a state of consciousness in which the outer world of sensation has no influence upon the action of the mind. And the latter can, therefore, be in complete tune with the divine mind. The life of most people is a succession of disturbances, shortages, losses, limitations, mothers-in-law, landlords, debts or injustices. This world was popularly known as a vale of tears. People were minding their own business, fighting their own battles and carrying their own burdens. If a man judges by appearances, more often than not, he finds himself in an arena. The arena of adverse conditions, and facing the lions of lack and limitation. If your eye is evil, if you are imagining adverse conditions, your whole body will be full of darkness. Therefore, if the light that is in you is darkness, how great will that darkness be? The light of the body is the inner eye, or imaginative faculty. And therefore, if your eye is single, you are seeing only one power, one plan and one planner, your body and your affairs will be full of light. See yourself, daily, bathed in the light of the Christ. This inner radiance is an invincible power, and dissolves all that is not divinely planned. It dissolves all appearance of sickness, lack, loss or limitation. It dissolves adverse conditions, or any weapon that is formed against you. We have always at our command this light, when your eye is single. We should learn to kindle this light, as surely as we kindle the electric light. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and his righteousness, and all good things shall be added unto it. The Chinese proverb says, "The philosopher leaves the cuff of his coat to the tailor." Thus, leave the plan of your life to the divine planner, and you will find all conditions permanently perfect. Chapter 5. Peace and Prosperity. Peace be within thy walls, and prosperity within thy palaces. In this statement from Psalm 122, we find that peace and prosperity always go hand in hand. People who manifest the appearance of lack are in a state of fear and confusion. They are unaware of their good, and miss their opportunities. A peaceful person is an awakened person, who sees clearly and acts quickly. He never misses an opportunity. I have seen discordant and unhappy people change completely. I will give an example to demonstrate how the law works. A woman came to see me, in a state of abject sadness. She had the same appearance. Her eyes were misty from crying, and her face was haggard. The man she loved had deserted her, and she was certainly the most demagnetized creature I had ever seen. I noticed the shape of her face, large eyes, wide apart, and a pointed chin. For many years I was an artist, and I got used to looking at people from an artist's point of view. Looking at this helpless creature, I thought, his face has the modeling of a Botticelli. I often see Rembrandts, Sir Joshua Reynolds, etc., in people I meet. I spoke the word for this woman, and gave her my book, The Game of Life and How to Play It. A week or two later, a very elegant person came in. Her eyes were beautiful, and she was very pretty. I thought her face had the modeling of a Botticelli. Suddenly, I realized it was the same woman. She was happy and carefree. What had happened? Our talk and the book had brought her peace. May peace be within your walls. When I speak of your walls, I mean your conscience. Jesus Christ emphasized peace and rest. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. He was speaking of the Christ within, your superconscious mind, where there are no burdens or battles. Doubts, fears, and negative images are in the subconscious. When I was returning from California a few years ago, I came by plane, and at high altitudes, I had a strange feeling of detachment. At high altitudes we are at peace with ourselves, and with the whole world. At the heights, the fields are always white with harvest. Only emotions prevent you from reaping your harvest of success, happiness, and abundance. We read in the Bible, I will bring back the years that the locusts have eaten. We might as well paraphrase it, and say, I will give you back the years that emotions have ruined. People are shaken with doubts and fears, which bring failure, unhappiness, and discomfort. I read in a journal that the laws of the mind are being generally recognized and understood. It has been found that the fear of failure is the greatest of all fears, and at least 75% of people examined psychologically have this fear of failure. Of course, this can refer to failure in health, failure in business, finances, love, success, etc. Other important fears are fear of the dark, fear of being alone, fear of animals. Some people fear being misunderstood, while others fear losing mental control. Constant and continuous fear affects the glands, interferes with digestion, and is often associated with distressing nervous symptoms. It robs the body of health and destroys happiness. Fear is man's worst enemy, because you attract what you fear. It is faith in reverse. It is really faith in evil, instead of good. Why are ye afraid, O ye men of little faith? The fearless, untrammeled mind attracts to itself all that is good. Whatever you desire or require, it is already in your path. Before ye knock, I have answered you. Suppose we paraphrase the scriptures, and say, whatever you desire or require, it is already planted in your path. Often a new word will give you a sudden understanding. If you need some information, it will be given to you. A friend of mine told me about this amazing workings of the law. He was translating an ancient Italian manuscript, about the life of an ancient Persian ruler. No book had been written in English on the subject. He wondered why publishers, he said, were delaying its publication. One evening he was dining at the automat, and struck up a conversation, with a man at the same table. He told him about the work he was doing, and about the translation of the old Italian manuscript. Suddenly, he said to him, it will be difficult for you to publish it, because the ideas of this Persian ruler clash with those of the present government. He was a student and a scholar, and he knew more about the subject than she did. Her question was answered and in the automat. Such information, as a rule, could only be gleaned, in the archives of some public library. God works his wonders in unexpected places. She had worried about it, but when she was calm, happy and carefree, the information sailed on a calm sea. Our feet shall be within thy gates, O Jerusalem. Jerusalem represents peace, and the feet, understanding. So understanding, always leads us to the gates of peace. How can a person attain peace, when his whole life is a whirlwind? By taking an affirmation. You can't control your thinking, but you can control your words, and finally, the word wins. Most people have attracted inharmonious conditions because they have been fighting their battles and carrying their burdens. We must learn to get out of God's way so that He can harmonize or adjust the situation. The word harmonize is a very good one, for I have seen crooked places straightened out, and adjustments made, that no human mind could have thought of. All that the kingdom offers is yours, if you give infinite intelligence the right of way, for she has already supplied abundant provision, for every demand made. But it must be fully trusted. If you doubt or fear, you lose touch with this supreme force. So if you are full of doubts and fears, it is necessary to do something to show your faith. Faith without works, or action, is dead. Faith activates, impresses the subconscious with expectation, and keeps your contact with universal intelligence. Just as Wall Street watches the market, we must watch our faith market. Often the faith market goes down, and sometimes down and down, until there is a crash, some unfortunate situation, which we could have avoided. We realize that we follow reason, rather than intuition. One woman told me how she had several definite clues not to follow a certain path. Despite this, she followed reasoning, and out of this came great unhappiness. Intuition is our infallible guide. Practice following it in the little things, and then you will trust it in the big things. I have a friend who is very intuitive, and sometimes she calls me and says, "I've had a hunch to call you, so I thought I'd find out what it's all about." Invariably I have some mission for her. We live magical lives, guided, protected and provided for. All fear would be banished forever, with the understanding of this amazing system, which the universal has provided for man. He would be unmoved by adverse appearances, knowing as the early Hebrews knew, that the Lord goes before, and every battle is won. A friend told me a very interesting story. A man in the paper business, in Kalamazoo, Michigan, has given away 1,000 of my books to his employees. He went into business with a small capital, and gave up cold judgment and reasoning. He has built a $12 million business, following leads and hunches. All his workers know the metaphysical law. Another man, who built his business on the law of give and take, had the same amazing success. He came to Philadelphia with a little money, and bought a magazine, an old publication. His desire was to give people a lot, for very little money. He believed in the law of giving. It turned out to be one of the most popular magazines. It offered the public the best in stories and illustrations, and paid well for it. The more he gave, the more he received, millions to spare. Let there be peace within thy walls, and prosperity in thy palaces. Peace and prosperity go hand in hand. Much peace have they which love thy law, and nothing shall offend them. This law is the law of non-resistance. Resist not evil, overcome evil with good. It transmutes all failure into success, lack into abundance, and discord into peace. Chapter 6. Your great opportunity. You have only one judge, your word. Jesus Christ said, "I say unto you, that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give account thereof in the day of judgment, for by thy word thou shalt be justified, and by thy word thou shalt be condemned." Every day is a day of judgment. We used to be taught that it would be at the end of the world. Look back over your life, and see how you have attracted happiness or disaster, through your words. The subconscious has no sense of humor. People joke destructively about themselves, and the subconscious takes it seriously. It is because the mental image you make as you speak impresses the subconscious, and it works outwardly. A person who knows the power of the word, takes great care of his conversation. He only has to observe the reaction of his words, to know that they do not come back empty. People make their worst mistakes by speaking when they are angry or resentful, because there are many bad feelings behind their words. Because of the vibrational power of words, what you express, you begin to attract. People who continually talk about disease invariably attract disease. Invisible forces are always at work for man, who is always pulling the strings himself, even if he does not know it. We read in the Bible that life and death are in the power of the tongue. However, most people speak destructively, from morning till night. It is because they have acquired the habit of criticizing, condemning and complaining, and are anxious to tell you their misfortunes, and how mean all their relatives are. They exhaust their friends, and people avoid them. They get into a flock of trouble. Now that we know the power of the word, why not harness it? We take advantage of radio, telephone and airplanes, but we live with the mound builders talking. Science and religion are coming together. Science is discovering the power of the atom, metaphysics teaches the power of thoughts and words. We are dealing with dynamite, when we deal with words. Think of the power of the word in healing. A word is uttered, and a chemical change takes place in the body. One of my friends was seriously ill. The doctor said she had chronic bronchitis, and was on the verge of pneumonia. Her daughters and the doctor rushed her to bed, and she had a nurse, but weeks went by and there was no improvement. She was a student of truth, but for more than a year, she had not attended any meetings, nor had she continued to read. One morning he telephoned me, and said, "Please speak the word and get me out of this. I can't take it anymore, I'm not sick, just disgusted. So many negative words and thoughts have almost sunk me." Through the spoken word, and her affirmation of truth, there was immediately a change for the better. She had a strong hunch to leave, and was told it would be dangerous, but at that moment, she was following divine guidance. She went out, then called me, and told me she was going to attend a luncheon the next day. What had happened? The words of truth were making a change in her mind, and a chemical change was taking place in her body. We are told that if we believe, without ever hesitating, we can say to that mountain, "Get out of the way," and it would disappear into the sea. The inexhaustible energy in man is released by goodwill. A man free from fear, undisturbed by appearances, sending goodwill to men and nations, could say to those mountains of hatred and war, "Get out of my mind," and they would return to their nothingness. And they would return to their native nothingness. Resentment and intolerance rob man of his power. We should have signs in the subway and in the stores, saying, "Mind your thoughts, mind your words." Let us be careful, in directing this dynamic force within us. Let us direct it to heal, bless and prosper, and let us direct it in waves of good to the whole world. It comes forth a powerful, but silent force. Thought, the strongest power in the universe, emits no sound. Tubuina will, sweep all obstacles out of your way, and your heart's desire is released to you. What thing is really yours? The answer is, all that the kingdom offers is yours. Every righteous desire of the heart is promised to you. There are 3,000 promises in the Bible, but these gifts can only come to us, if we can believe them possible, because everything comes through you, and not to you. All of life is vibration. Feel rich and you will attract wealth. Feel successful and you become successful. I knew a little boy, who was born in a small rural town with no advantages, but he always felt successful. He had the conviction that when he grew up, he would be a great artist. No one could discourage him, because he was success, and he had only victorious thoughts. He radiated success. At an early age he left the small town, and went to a big city, and to support himself, he got a job as an artist in a newspaper. All this without previous preparation. It never occurred to him that it couldn't be done. He went to art school, and immediately became a luminary. She never studied academically, and everything she saw she remembered. In a few years, he moved to an even bigger city, and became a well-known artist. This success came to him, because he was always seeing success. I will give you the land you see. To the children of Israel, they were told that they could have all the land they could see. The Bible is a metaphysical book, and it speaks to the individual. This minute, it says to each of us, I will give you the land that you see. So what are you seeing with your inner eye? What images are you inviting into your life? The faculty of imagining has been called the scissors of the mind. If you have thoughts of failure, reverse them with a thought of success. This seems easy to do, but when a thought of failure has already become a habit, it takes eternal vigilance to dislodge it. This is when a powerful affirmation is needed. You cannot always control your thought, but you can control your word, and finally, the word impresses the subconscious, and it takes over. If you find yourself in a negative state of mind, simply take the affirmation, I look in awe at what is before me. Create an expectation of something wonderful, and something wonderful will come to you. Cultivate the feeling that miracles and wonders are about to happen. Cultivate an expectation of success. Very few people bring to life what belongs to them. They live on the outskirts of their heart's desire. Everything always seems too good to be true, but for the spiritually awakened person, nothing is too good to be real. If you want to hear people talk who are still asleep, in the Adamic sleep, then go to a hairdresser. Adamic sleep is the illusion of opposites. Adam fell into a deep sleep, having eaten from the tree of illusion. Of course, Adam represents the generic man, the man of race. The man of race vainly imagined loss, lack, failure, sin, sickness and death. Awakened man knows only one power, God, and one condition, good. But now back to the beauty parlor. The following is an exact quote, and a good example of what you hear. A woman sat near me, and said aloud, this place is too hot. Turn something on or open something. The employee said, how are you feeling today, Mrs. S? She replied with a heavy sigh, oh, I'm pretty good, but I'm having a hard time keeping well. To the manicurist he said, why aren't you wearing glasses? The girl replied, I don't need glasses, why should I wear them? The woman replied, because everyone else wears them. You'll find out there's something wrong with your eyes, if you examine them. When she finally leaves, everyone feels limp, and wonders if they are really okay, or just look it. She leaves a trace of apprehension and melancholy. This is a sample of what you hear in almost every booth, the way most people talk. It's frightening when you know the power of the word, and what they can attract, as almost everyone describes illness or operations. You combine with what you notice, so don't describe anything destructive, otherwise you begin to combine with it. What is really yours? The blessings you bring to yourself, through your spoken or silent word, the things you see with your inner eye. Only your doubts, fears and resentments, keep you from the good. If you hate or resent a situation, you have fixed it to you, for you attract what you fear or dislike. For example, someone has been unfair to you, and you are filled with anger and resentment. You cannot forgive that person. Time passes, and another person does the same thing. It is because you have an image of injustice, engraved in your subconscious. History will repeat itself, until you think you are cursed by misfortune and injustice. There is only one way to neutralize it. Remain absolutely unperturbed by injustice, and send goodwill to all concerned. My goodwill is a strong tower around me. Now I transmute all enemies into friends, all inharmony into harmony, all injustice into justice. You will be amazed at how the law works. One student brought harmony out of chaos in her business affairs, by making that statement. Don't look back or lament the hard times, or you will fall back into those conditions. Give thanks for the dawn of a new day. You must be immune to all discouragement, and to adverse appearances. All that you desire or require is already in your path, but you must be wide awake to your good, to bring it into manifestation. After making statements of truth, you suddenly have a flash of realization. Suddenly you feel yourself in a new environment. You feel the old negative conditions slowly fade away. I once said to a woman, "The walls of lack and backwardness now crumble, and you enter your promised land under grace." She said, she had a sudden flash of a crumbling wall, and she stepped over it. Shortly thereafter, the change occurred, and she actually entered the promised land of abundance. I met a woman, whose daughter longed for a home and a husband. In her youth she had had a broken engagement. Every time a possible marriage appeared on the horizon, she became frantic with fear and apprehension, vividly imagining another disappointment, and so on and so forth. Her mother came to me, to say the word in favor of her right, divinely designed marriage, which could not be interfered with. During the interview, the mother continually said, "Poor Nellie, poor Nellie." I said, "Don't call your daughter poor Nellie again. You are helping her to demagnetize. Call her lucky Nellie, for you must have faith, that God is now granting her the desires of her heart." The mother and daughter persisted in their affirmations. Now she has fulfilled her destiny, for she is Mrs. Nellie, and the demon of fear dissolved forever. There are wonderful statements in the Bible, which refer to the breaking down of negative thought forms. The power of the Spirit is mighty, even to the pulling down of strongholds. The human mind is powerless to deal with these negative thoughts. The victory is won by the God within, the superconscious mind. Brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, and if there be any praise, think on these things. Philippians 4:8. If people would obey this, general conversation would come to a standstill for a while, until people learn to talk about constructive things. Chapter 7. Be careful for nothing. Throughout the Bible, we are told not to be anxious, not to be afraid, not to hoard or save, for an invincible and invisible power is at man's command to supply every need. But we were told that it would not work, unless we believed in it. If you can believe in this power of God, then all things are possible. It is difficult for man to believe in this power, because he has had a correct training in unbelief. "I will believe only what I can see," was supposed to be the height of wisdom. We lived in a world of the external, where we thought that everything just happened. We did not know that behind every event there was a cause, and that we ourselves set in motion the machinery that produced good or evil in our path. We did not know that words and thoughts are a form of dynamite, and that they must be handled with care, wisdom and understanding. We throw words of anger, resentment or self-pity into the ether, and then wonder why life is so hard. Why not experiment with faith, trust in this unseen power, and, in nothing be anxious, but, in everything by prayer and thanksgiving let your requests be made known unto God. Is there anything simpler and more direct? Anxiety and habit have become habits. Old thought forms, which you have accumulated in the subconscious, hang like barnacles on an ocean liner. But the ocean liner goes into dry dock from time to time to have the barnacles removed, so your mental barnacles will have to go through the same process. Dry docking is an important situation. I know a woman who had been a coward all her life, especially with finances, and was always worried about money. She came to this truth, realized how she had limited herself, and suddenly made the giant shift to faith. She began to rely on God, and not the external for her provision. She followed her intuition about spending. If any of her clothes made her feel poor, she threw them away immediately, and bought something new that made her feel rich. She had very little money, but she gave a tenth, the tithe, for good works. She was wrapping herself in a new vibration. Soon, things began to change outwardly. A woman, to whom he had no right whatsoever, who was nothing more than an old friend of his family, left him $1,000. A few months later, another 1,000 came to him. Then a great door was opened for her supply, and many thousands more came in. She had drawn on her invisible supply, from the bank of the universal. She had looked to God alone for her supply, then the channels opened. The point I want to make is that she had lost all anxiety about money matters. She had established in her subconscious the firm conviction that her supply came from God, and it never failed. Man is an instrument for infinite intelligence to work through, expressing itself as success, happiness, abundance, health and perfect self-expression. Unless fear and anxiety short-circuit. If we want examples of fearless faith, let's go to the circus. Circus people perform seemingly impossible feats because they believe they can, and they see themselves doing it. Having faith means you can see yourself, receiving all those things you desire. I will give you the land you see. You can never do a thing you don't see yourself doing, or fill a place you don't see yourself filling, not visualizing, making a mental image. This is a mental process, and often brings wrong and limited results. It must be a spiritual realization, a feeling that you are already there, being in your vibration. I was very impressed by the story of a great soccer player, who was the best all-round athlete in the world, knowing that he trained in a hammock. One day he was lying there sleeping in the sun, and the coach came up to him with tears in his eyes and said, "Jim, for the love of your country, why don't you get out of the hammock and do something?" Jim opened one eye and said, "I was thinking about that. I was going to send for you." "All right," said the trainer. "What do you want me to do?" "First," Jim said, "I want you to mark 25 feet there on the ground." The coach did so. "And then what?" said the coach. "That's it," said Jim, and he closed his eyes, and swung happily. After at least 5 minutes he opened them, and looked at the marks for a few seconds, then closed his eyes again. "What's going on?" the trainer shouted. "What are you doing?" Jim looked at him reproachfully, and replied, "I'm practicing the long jump." He did all his training in a hammock, seeing himself doing the broad jump. Without vision my people perish, in lack and limitation. You can work very hard on the external, and achieve nothing, if you have no vision. Vision means to see clearly where you are going, to keep your eye on the goal. All men who have achieved great things have done this. James Hill, who built the Great Northern Railway, said that before laying a rail, he heard with his inner ear the rumbling of trains and the whistle of locomotives. He had to overcome many obstacles, but his vision was so clear, it possessed him. One thing in his favor was that his wife believed in him, and it is said that it takes two to make a dream come true. Henry Ford, speaking of his mother-in-law, said she was a good woman, she believed in me. When two agree, then it will be done. If you believe in yourself, others will believe in you. When you believe in yourself and the power of God within you, fear and anxiety disappear. You set the vibration of security, and this is true for an intuitive person. Every move is made under divine guidance, and never violates a hunch, therefore, you are always in the right place at the right time. However, it often takes a lot of courage to follow intuition. It takes a fearless Viking to sail in uncharted seas. Claude Bragdon says, "To live intuitively is to live in the fourth dimension." The magic path takes you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of slavery, and is invaluable in business. Never submit a hunch to someone on the plane of reasoning. Those who have ears to hear, let them listen to their intuitions, and obey instantly. Whatsoever you ask of God, God will give you. This is true of anyone, but if we have not received all the blessings of life, we have neglected to ask, or have not asked aright. The Bible teaches spiritual law, and we must study it and use it from every angle, to set in motion the great machinery of asking and receiving. Every machine must be oiled and greased to keep it in good working order. Active faith and expectation keep the asking and receiving machine in perfect readiness. The following are some of the lubricants that keep it running. When ye pray, believe that ye shall have it. Be anxious for nothing. Be still, and behold the salvation of the Lord. Do not limit the Holy One of Israel. Fulfillment is manifestation, so pray with praise and thanksgiving. Some people pray full of anger and resentment. A woman wrote to me the other day saying, "I just had a good talk with God, and told him just what he should do about it." She was in the habit of ordering people around, and considered God as someone she could bully into doing something for her. God is the supreme intelligence within each of us, and we are the channels for it to express itself. We must show ourselves to be non-resistant, serene and peaceful, waiting for our good to be realized. We are the receivers, God is the giver, so he must create his own channels. Praying correctly is an art. God must have the right of way, his way, not yours. The moment you make your request, infinite intelligence knows the way to fulfill it. If you decide how your prayer will be answered, you will have blocked the divinely designed channel. Then you can say, "My prayers are never answered." We must acquire a technique and send a sincere desire, which is a prayer. We are free from all clutch or anxiety, when we say, "If this is according to the divine plan, we will receive it, if not, give us its equivalent." We must be careful not to force anything that is not divinely foreseen. We must know, that united to the power of God, nothing can overcome us. God's ways are ingenious, and his methods sure. Two of the most beautiful psalms are the 23rd and the 121st. Both convey a feeling of absolute security, and were written by a man who had experienced the workings of spiritual law. The God within protects, guides and provides, when fully trusted. Most people lose what they love the most, precisely because of the fear of losing it. They take all precautions externally, without entrusting protection to the eye that watches over Israel. Put what you love under the law of divine protection. The most important part of the demonstration is to show fearless faith. I will go before you, and I will make the crooked places straight. I will break in pieces the gates of bronze, and I will split in two the bars of iron. The Bible speaks of states of consciousness. The gates of brass and the bars of iron are your doubts, fears, resentments and anxieties. The gates of brass and the bars of iron are of our own creation, and come from our own vain imaginations, a belief in evil. There is a story of a herd of wild elephants, who were corralled in an enclosure, but the men had no way to keep them in, so they dug stakes, and put a rope around the enclosure. The elephants thought they couldn't get out. They could have stepped over the rope and come out, but they had the illusion that the rope kept them in. So it is with people, doubt and fear are a rope stretched around their consciousness, and it makes it impossible for them to get out into clear thinking. Clear vision is like a man with a compass, he knows where he is going. Let intuition be your compass, and it will always lead you out of the woods. Even a man without a compass, guided by intuition, would find his way out of the jungle, or be able to steer a ship at sea. Intuition will tell you to walk the rope. It is amazing to see how people have overlooked their most important faculty, intuition. Always in man's path is his message or clue. Often our clues seem trivial and silly. A person purely on the intellectual plane would dismiss them at once, but the student of truth always has his spiritual ear to the spiritual ground, knowing that he is receiving orders from the infinite. The Bible often speaks of the still small voice. It is a voice that is not real, although at times, real words register in the inner ear. When we ask for guidance, and set aside the reasoning mind, we are accessing the universal source of all knowledge, and whatever you need to know will be revealed to you. Some people are intuitive by nature, so they are always in touch with universal intelligence, but by taking an affirmation, we make a conscious contact. Prayer is telephoning God, and intuition is God contacting you. Many people have a busy wire when God phones, and they don't get the message. Your line is busy when you are discouraged, angry or resentful. You have heard the expression, "I was so angry I couldn't see straight." We could add, "I was so angry, I couldn't hear well." Your negative emotions drown out the voice of intuition. When you are discouraged, angry or resentful, it is time to make a statement of truth, in order to get out of the forest of despair and limitation, because, whoever calls upon the name of the Lord will be delivered. There is a way out, reveal to me the way. We must stop planning, plotting and scheming, and let the infinite intelligence solve the problem His way. God's power is subtle, silent and irresistible. It levels mountains and fills valleys, and knows no defeat. Our part is to prepare for our blessings, and follow our intuitive clues. We now give to infinite intelligence the right of way. Chapter 8. Fear. Why are you fearful, O ye of little faith? Throughout the Bible, man is told not to be afraid. Fear is man's only enemy. It is faith in reverse. Jesus Christ said, "Why are you fearful, O ye of little faith?" Just by believing, everything is possible, and united to the power of God, man is invincible. The story of Jehoshaphat is the story of the individual. Often he seems overcome by adverse appearances, but he hears the very voice of the Infinite, saying to him, "Fear not, nor be dismayed because of this great multitude, for the battle is not yours, but God's." Jehoshaphat and his army were even told that they would not need to fight the battle. "Prepare yourselves, stand still, and behold the salvation of the Lord, for the battle was not theirs but God's." Jehoshaphat appointed singers to the Lord, to praise the beauty of holiness, as they went out before the army, saying, "Praise the Lord, for His mercy endures forever." When they came toward the watchtower in the wilderness, they looked toward the multitude, and behold, they were dead. The enemy had destroyed himself, and there was nothing left to fight against. The Bible speaks of states of consciousness. Your enemies are your doubts and your fears, your criticisms and your resentments. Every negative thought is an enemy. You may be outnumbered by adverse appearances, but fear not, nor be dismayed, because of this great multitude, for the battle is not yours, but God's. As we follow closely the story of Jehoshaphat, we see that he went forward making an affirmation, "Praise the Lord, forever is His mercy." He had nothing to say about the enemy, or about his own lack of strength. He was giving all his attention to the Lord, and when he began to sing and praise, the Lord set ambushes against his enemies, and they were smitten. When you make your declarations of truth, your enemies' thoughts are vanquished, dissolved and dissipated, and therefore all adverse appearances disappear. When Jehoshaphat and his army came to the watchtower in the wilderness, they looked upon the multitude, and, behold, they were dead. The watchtower in the wilderness is your high state of consciousness, your fearless faith, your place of safety. There you rise above all adverse conditions, and the battle of God is won. When Jehoshaphat and his people, when they came to take the spoils of the enemy, they found among them riches and precious jewels, more than they could carry, and they were 3 days gathering the spoil. That means, when you let God fight the battle for you, great blessings come out of adverse situations. Your inner God will turn the curse into a blessing, for the Lord your God loves you. The ingenuity of the Spirit is amazing. It is pure intelligence, and admits no interference in its plans. It is very difficult for the average person to stand still, which means to keep his poise, and let the infinite intelligence handle the situation. People like to rush into battle, and try to handle things on their own, which brings defeat and failure. You will have no need to fight in this battle. Stand firm, be still, and see the salvation of the Lord with you. Tomorrow go out against them, for the Lord will be with you. That means, don't run away from the situation, walk without fear, and face the lion on your way, so that the lion becomes a harmless little dog. The lion takes its fierceness from your fear. A great poet has said, "Courage has genius, magic and power." Daniel was not afraid, and the lions' mouths were shut. King Darius called to Daniel while he was still in the lion's den, asking him if God could save him from the lions, and Daniel replied, "O king, live forever. My God has sent his angels, and has shut the lions' mouths, that they may not harm me." We have in this story, the subdued attitude of the lions, as a result of spiritual power. The whole group changed from ferocity to docility, and Daniel looking away from the beasts, to the light and power of the Spirit, which saved him completely from the lions. Hardly a day passes without some lion appearing in the path of man, the lions of lack, of limitation, of fear, of injustice, of fear, or of foreboding. Approach immediately the situation you fear. If you run away from it, it will always be on your heels. Many people lose the things they cherish or love because they are continually afraid of losing them. They do everything possible on the outside, to ensure protection, but behind it all, there is the devastating image of fear. To hold the things you cherish and love, you must know that they are divinely protected, and therefore, nothing can harm them. I give the example of a woman, who loved very much a man who was handsome and popular, among most women. She decided to prevent him from meeting a particular woman, because she was sure that he would do everything possible to eliminate her, to use a slang expression. One night she went to the theater, and there she was with the woman. They had met at a card party, but in fact, her fears had attracted the situation. I knew a woman who had 7 children. She knew they were all divinely protected, and they grew up safe and sound. One day, a neighbor came running in and said, "You better call your children, they are all climbing up and down trees, they are going to kill themselves." My friend replied, "They're just playing at climbing trees. Don't look at them and nothing will happen." Like Daniel, she turned her back on the situation, and let God take care of her. The average person is a resenter, a resistor, or a regretter. They resent people they know, and people they don't know. They resent everything, even daylight saving time. They regret what they did or what they didn't do, so it's very wearing to be with these people. They exhaust all their friends. This happens, because they are not living in the wonderful now, so they lose all the tricks in the game of life. It is paradise, not to be afraid and to live fully in the now. That is, not to be afraid to use what we have, knowing that behind us, there is the abundance of the spheres, to which we can turn to at all times. We know that fearless faith and the spoken word release this supply. The power of the word was known in Egypt thousands of years ago. We read in the Bible, "Behold, I make all things new." By our words of truth, we can make our minds, bodies and affairs new. When all fear is erased, we live magical lives. Like Jehoshaphat, we go forward fearlessly singing, "Praise the Lord, His mercy endures forever." In our watchtower of high consciousness, we stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord. Christianity is founded on faith. Faith gives one a sublime assurance of His good. One may be surrounded by adverse appearances, but this sublime assurance impresses the subconscious mind, and a way is opened for the manifestation of health, wealth and happiness. There is an infinite and invisible supply for every man. Before we called we were answered. This supply is waiting to be released by faith and the spoken word. We find that Jesus Christ taught an exact science. At the World's Fair, there was a panorama of New York City, in the Edison Building. At dusk, when the city was being illuminated, the buildings showed a lot of lights. The man explaining the exhibit said, "The city is illuminated by the power of electricity, with the flip of a switch, the turn of a hand." Edison was the man who had faith in the laws of electricity. He knew what could be done with it, if harnessed and directed. He seemed to have an intelligence of his own. After years of patience and lovingly absorbing his work, he created a dynamo that allows it to function. Now this force illuminates the world, because it is channeled and directed. Jesus Christ taught man to harness and direct thought. He knew that fear was as dangerous as uncontrolled electrical forces. Words and thoughts must be handled with wisdom and understanding. Imagination is the workshop of man, and an imagination, which runs wild and builds images of fear, is as safe as riding a bronco. We were born, and grew up, in an era of doubt and fear. We were told that the age of miracles was over, and to expect the worst. Optimistic people were laughed at. One brilliant comment was, "A pessimist is a person who lives with an optimist." "Eat the speckled apples first," was thought to be the height of wisdom. They didn't seem to realize, that by following this advice, they would never reach the good apples, for they would also be speckled by the time they reached them. What a wonderful world this would be, if all anxiety and fear were erased. These twins, anxiety and worry, have made slaves of men, and are destroyers of health, wealth and happiness. There is only one way to get rid of fear, and that is to transmute it into faith, for fear is the opposite of faith. "Why are you fearful, O ye of little faith?" These words echo down through the centuries. Jesus Christ taught that the Father within man can be trusted absolutely to guide, protect and provide when man believes it possible. Jesus Christ demonstrated this power of God again and again to convince his followers. From the invisible provision he brought forth the fish and the fishes, he raised the dead, and he took money out of the fishes' mouths. He said to them, "You shall do greater things, for I go away." We know that he was teaching an exact science, the science of the mind, the power of thought, and the power of the word. We must have faith, because faith registers the idea in the subconscious mind. When an idea is registered in the subconscious, it must be objectified. That is why Jesus Christ told the people that if they believed, which is to have faith, everything was possible. How can we get rid of this anxiety, which we could call anti-faith? The only way to neutralize it is to approach that which frightens us. There was a man who had lost all his money. He lived in a very poor neighborhood, and all the people around him were poor, and he was afraid to spend what little he had. All he had was about $5. He had tried to get a job, but everyone had turned him down. He woke up one morning, to face another day of lack and disappointment, when he got the idea, or hunch, to go to the horse show. It cost him everything he had, but he was excited by the idea, to be with rich and successful people again. He was tired of his limited surroundings. Unafraid, he spent the money on a ticket to the horse show. There he met an old friend, who said, "Hi Jim. Where have you been all this time?" Before the show was over, the old friend offered him a great position in his company. His hunch, and his fearless attitude toward money, had put him on a new vibration of success. You must get in the habit of taking giant leaps of faith, and you will receive marvelous returns. As already noted, we watch in awe as people in the circus perform their remarkable feats. These people have faith that they can perform these acts, and they see themselves doing them. One cannot perform anything that one does not see oneself performing. These difficult feats are a matter of balance, and your success and happiness depend on your balance. Trusting in God is like walking on a slack wire. Doubt and fear cause you to lose your balance and fall into lack and limitation. Like the circus performer, it takes practice, and no matter how many times you fail, always try again. Soon you will acquire the habit of balance, and then the world will be yours. You will walk joyfully into your kingdom. All the circus performers seem to like their work, and they don't care how difficult it is. The band plays, the people applaud and they smile, but remember that they were trained without music or applause. Rhythm, harmony and balance are the keys to success and happiness. When you have no rhythm, you have no luck. In the 4th chapter of Philippians, we can read, "Be anxious, or anxious, for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving let your requests be made known unto God." This is indeed a wonderful arrangement, all in favor of man. Man, free from worries and fears, asks with thanksgiving, and his good is granted. Chapter 9. Victory and Fulfillment. Victory and fulfillment are two wonderful words, and as we realize that words and thoughts are a form of radial activity, we choose carefully the words we wish to see crystallized. Life is a crossword puzzle, the right word gives you the answer. Many people spout destructive words in their conversations. We hear them say, "I am ruined, I am sick." Remember that by your words you are justified, and by your words you will be condemned. You are condemned by them, because they return nothing, so change your words and you will change your world, because your word is your world. You choose your food, and the world is now calorie conscious. People no longer eat buckwheat cakes, steak, potatoes, pie and 3 cups of coffee for breakfast. To keep from getting fat, they now eat dry toast and orange juice. This is a tremendous discipline, but they are working to get results. Why not try a diet of right words, if you are literally eating your words? That's the value of affirmation. You are deliberately building a constructive idea in your consciousness. Your consciousness may be cluttered and clogged with destructive ideas, but continually making an affirmation of truth will dissolve these negative thought forms. These thought forms have been built up from your own vain imaginings. Perhaps as a child you were taught that life was hard, happiness ephemeral, and that the world was cold and hostile. These ideas were engraved in your subconscious, and you found things as they were predicted. With a knowledge of truth, all these external images can be changed, for they are only images, which change as your subconscious beliefs change. When I tell people about the power of the word, and that words and thoughts are a form of radial activity, and do not return empty, they say, "Oh, isn't it as easy as that?" A lot of people like things that are hard to understand. I think that's why the amazingly simple teachings of Jesus Christ were forgotten after a few hundred years. People build creeds and ceremonies that they only half understand. Now, in this 20th century, the secret things are being revealed, and we are having primitive Christianity again. Ask believing, and you shall receive. We know that our beliefs or expectations are imprinted in the subconscious and carried out. We could say that if you ask without believing, you will not receive. Faith creates expectation. This infinite intelligence, from which man draws, is called, by Jesus Christ, the Heavenly Father. The Father within, he described as a kind and loving Father, eager to shower all good things upon his children. Fear not, little flock, it hath pleased the Father to give you the kingdom. He taught that the law of God was simply a law of love and goodwill. Love your neighbor as yourself, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Any violation of the law of love causes a short circuit. The way of the transgressor is hard. God is immutable law, I am the Lord, law, I do not change. Divine ideas are immutable, not subject to change. A woman came to me, full of fears and forebodings. She told me that for years she had been haunted by the fear that even if she received her heart's desire, something would happen to spoil it. I told her, the divine plan of your life is a perfect idea in the divine mind, incorruptible and indestructible, and cannot be spoiled in any way. Then a great burden lifted from his consciousness, and for the first time in years, he had a feeling of joy and freedom. Know the truth, and the truth gives you a sense of freedom, which will soon bring real freedom outwardly. This supreme intelligence is the one with which man becomes one when he utters the word. This supreme intelligence awaits man's direction, but it must have right of way, and must not be limited. Divine activity in your body brings health. There is only one disease, congestion, and one cure, circulation. Congestion and stagnation are the same thing. People say, it has become stagnant. A new idea will get them out of the rut, and we must get out of the rut of negative thinking. The word enthusiasm in the dictionary is defined as, to be inspired or possessed by a god. Enthusiasm is divine fire, and it ignites enthusiasm in others. To be a good salesperson, you must be enthusiastic about the items you sell. If you are bored with your business or disinterested, the fire goes out, and no one else will be interested. A woman came to see me, in order to succeed in business, and said, I have a store, but it is usually empty. I don't bother to open it late, what for? I replied, indeed, it's no use as long as you feel the way you feel. You're driving people away. You have to get excited about what you have to sell, and also about yourself. Get excited about the power of God in you, and get up early to open your store, and be ready for the big crowd. At that moment, she was already full of divine expectation. She hurried to her store as early as possible, and the people were waiting for her outside, and did not stop coming in all day long. People often say to me, try my business. I tell them, no, I will treat you, because you are your business. Your quality of thought permeates every item for sale, and all the conditions connected with it. Jesus Christ was divinely excited, with the message he had to carry, to the Father within every man. He was enthusiastic about faith, and he told the people that whatever they would ask in his name would be given to them. It was a message of asking and receiving. He told them how to fulfill the spiritual law. Ask believing and ye shall receive. When ye pray ye must believe that ye shall have it. Why fear ye, O ye of little faith? After 2,000 years, his divine fire is rekindled, in the consciousness of all students of truth. We are having a Christian revival, a new birth, a rebirth of Christianity. He taught a universal principle, without creed or ceremony. We see members of all religions, denominations, coming to this movement of truth. It does not drive them away from their churches. In fact, many clergymen are now teaching the ideas that the metaphysicians show. For Jesus Christ is the greatest of all metaphysicians, because he proved his principles and performed miracles. He sent his disciples to preach the gospel, and to heal the sick. For about 300 years, his message survived, then his divine fire was lost, and the words, be healed, ceased to be uttered. Creed and ceremony took their place. Now we see people flocking to these centers of truth to be healed, blessed and prospered. They have learned to pray rightly, and have an understanding faith. One woman told me of an answered prayer. Her son wrote her that he was going to Southern California for a business trip in his car. She read in the morning paper about a flood, and then immediately spoke the word for divine protection. She had a great sense of security, knowing he would be protected. Soon she heard from him, saying that some business had interfered with his departure, so he was detained. If he had left when he expected, he would have been in the flood district. We get divinely excited with our answered prayers, which we call demonstrations, for it means that we have demonstrated the truth, and have been delivered from some limitation. Psalm 24 is one of the most enthusiastic of the many psalms of praise and thanksgiving. Lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be ye lift up, ye everlasting doors, and the King of glory shall come in. The King of glory, the Lord strong and mighty, the Lord mighty in battle. The gates and doors symbolize the consciousness of man. As you rise in consciousness, you contact the superconscious, the God within, and the King of glory appears. This King of glory lifts your burdens, fights your battles and solves your problems. The normal person has a hard time letting the King of glory in. Doubt, fear and apprehension keep the doors and gates closed against your good. A student told me about a situation she encountered because of her negative thinking. She had been invited to a gathering of old and dear friends. It was of the utmost importance to her to be there, and she was so anxious to go, that she repeatedly said to herself, "Oh, I hope nothing will happen to interfere." The day of the reception came, and she awoke with a terrible headache. At another time, she had been subject to these headaches, going to bed for several days, but she had not had one for many years. Her doubts and fears had attracted this disappointment. She called me, and said, "Will you do me the favor of saying that in the evening I shall be all right, so that I can go to the reception?" I replied, "Of course, nothing can interfere with God's perfect plan." So I said the word. Later, he told me about his miracle. She said that, despite how she felt, she prepared to go. She cleaned her jewelry, prepared her dress, and took care of all the details, even though she could barely move. Late in the afternoon, she said she had a strange feeling, as if the fog lifted, and she felt perfectly fine. He went to the reception, and had a great time. I think the healing might have come more quickly, if she had not said, "I want to be well for tonight." We were continually limited by our words, so until the evening she was not perfectly well. By your word you are justified, and by your word you are condemned. I met a man, who was the center of attraction wherever he went, because he was always excited about something. Whether it was shoes, clothes, or a haircut, he would get others excited so that they would buy the same things. He didn't gain anything material from it, he was simply enthusiastic by nature. Someone has said, if you want to be interesting to others, be interested in something. An interested person is an enthusiastic person. We often hear people say, "Tell me what you are interested in." Many people lack vital interests, and are eager to know what others are doing. They are usually the ones who have the radio on, from early in the morning until late at night. They have to be entertained every minute, as their own affairs do not interest them enough. A woman once said to me, "I love other people's business." She lived on gossip. Her conversation consisted of, "I have been told, I have been given to understand." Needless to say, he is now paying his karmic debt. A great unhappiness has taken hold of her, and everyone knows her affairs. It is dangerous to neglect one's own affairs, and to be idly curious about what others are doing. We should all be busy, in perfecting ourselves, but take a kindly interest in others. Make the most of your disappointments, transmuting them into happy surprises. Transmute all failures into success, transmute all unforgiveness into forgiveness, all injustice into justice. You will be busy enough perfecting your own life, and you will have no time to concern yourself with the affairs of others. Jesus Christ aroused the enthusiasm of the crowds, working miracles, healing the sick and raising the dead. And a great multitude followed him, because they saw the miracles which he did for the sick. When we read this, we feel the enthusiasm of the crowds that surrounded him. With him everything was possible, for he knew that he and the Father were, in truth, one and the same. With divine enthusiasm I bless what I have, and look with wonder at its increase. If you liked this audiobook, and you want to listen to other similar ones, check the video description.